Awesome. We are live. Yay. This is exciting. I know that you all are enjoying day 2 coming out of your breakout sessions. We're going to get started here with our keynote speaker in just a few minutes. We'll put some music on for you in just a little bit, just to have you all come and get gathered in the room. But for all of you coming in, and for those of you who will be joining us for the first time for the keynotes, I hope you all got your liberation boxes and your gift card out of there, because this is lunchtime. And I know I got my lunch coming, because I am so excited to listen to Raquel here in just a few minutes. And I'll be doing that with my lunch, so we can all do that together. So we will get started here in just a few minutes with the introduction of our brilliant and amazing keynote speaker. They'll be starting soon, but for now, we'll give you some tunes to get you coming in and to get you ready, get your lunch together, and we'll get started in just a few.
I told that boy we gotta keep it lowly, me the room key. I done bled the block and now it's hot, bitch, I'm Tunchi. I'm mood and I'm moody. I'm a savage. Classy, bougie, ratchet. Sassy, moody, nasty. Acting stupid, what's happening? What's happening? Bitch, I'm a savage. Classy, bougie, ratchet. Sassy, moody, nasty. Hacking, stupid, what's happening? What's happening?
Hips tick-tock when I dance. On that demon time, she might start her OnlyFans. Big B and that B stand for bands. If you wanna see some real ass, baby, here's your chance. I say left cheek, right cheek, drop it low and swing. Texas up in this thing, put you up on this gang. I be parking my frame, gang, 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 gang. If you don't jump to put jeans on, baby, you don't feel my pain. Please don't give me hype, write my name in ice. Can't argue with these lazy bitches, I just raise my price. I'm a boss, I'm a leader, I pull up in my two-seater, and my mama was a savage. Nigga got this shit from Tina, I'm a savage, yeah.
Classy, bougie, ratchet. Sassy, moody, nasty. Acting stupid, what's happening? What's happening? Bitch, I'm a savage, yeah. Classy, bougie, ratchet. Sassy, moody, nasty. Hacking, stupid, what's happening? Bitch, what's happening? Like Beyonce, like me. He want a bitch like the stallion with the knees. He be like, damn, how that thing moving in the jeans. Ay, even D4L couldn't do it like me, like me.
Ooh, I got this body ready just for you. Girl, I hope you don't catch me messing around with you. Talking to myself in the mirror like, bitch, you my boo.
I'm the shit, ooh. I need a mop to clean the floors, too much drip, ooh. I keep a knot, I keep a watch, I keep a whip, ooh. Let's play a game, Simon says I'm still that bitch, ayy. I'm still that bitch, yeah. I'm a savage, yeah. Classy, bougie, ratchet, yeah. Sassy, moody, nasty, yeah. Acting stupid, what's happening? Bitch, what's happening? Bitch, I'm a savage, yeah. Classy, bougie, ratchet, yeah. Sassy, moody, nasty, yeah. Hacking, stupid, what's happening? Bitch, what's happening?
Alright, they asking for the queen and why some cameras in here. I'm a bad bitch, she's a savage, no comparison here. I'ma flip my hair and look back while I twerk in the mirror. All this money in a room, think some scammers in here. I'm coming straight up out that third. Whip the whip like I stirred it. Wood grain, we swerving, keeping his mind all on these curves. Coop fly like a bird, cold on them like birds. Always keep my word, no I don't do crosswords. Stallion when I ride him like them hot girls, them hits. I hop that shit the way I hopped up and slid. I pop my shit, now watch me pop up again. I mop the float, now watch me sweep up these M's.
I'm savage, classy, bougie, ratchet, sassy, moody, nasty, acting stupid, what's happening? What's happening? Bitch, I'm a savage, classy, bougie, ratchet, sassy, moody, nasty, hacking, stupid, what's happening? What's happening?
I'm a savage. It's the stallion and the bee.
Oh, I get into that. I'm telling you, that song, I don't think that song is going to get old. I just don't think it's going to get old. Savage is going to go down as like one of the classic songs ever. I think, we're going to be jamming to that 20 years from now. Welcome back, everybody. Day 2, Justice Now 2020. I hope that you are all enjoying yourselves. I know that the workshop sessions and all the different tracks were fire. And I know that folks had a really good time because we've been seeing your comments and things come through social media. Continue to put all of your thoughts, your experiences, pictures, everything on social media using that hashtag Justice Now 2020. Make sure we make this thing trend. It's going to take you to make this thing trend. So make sure that you all are putting all of that there. Just to remind you all, but it's going to be really, really, really important for you to use all of the amazing ways that have been provided through this virtual experience to stay connected to each other. The WOVA app, there's chat boards, there's all kinds of dope ways for you to stay connected using the chat here. Let us feel your energy. Let us hear you. Let us know that you are in the building. And let us know where you're coming from. There's folks all across the country in this virtual space with us today. So let's make sure that we stay connected there. Black Sanctuary is going on all day. It is our Black autonomous space here at Justice Now for that beautiful respite, chill out space for Black folks. So needed right now. Beautiful pre-recorded sessions going on over there. So make sure that you take advantage of that too. At us, Spark RJ. Now, just keep it all flowing, y'all. Y'all are doing great. You're doing amazing. Let's keep building on this. I hope that you got your lunch in front of you. My lunch is going to be here in just a few seconds. But if you did not know, in your liberation kit, which was sent to you from Spark, you have a gift card for food. Get in on it. Order your favorite food. Have them bring it to you, or order the groceries and make that for yourself. Whatever feels good to you. Know that Spark was very, very, very dedicated to making sure that everybody who attended this conference was well taken care of from the start to the finish. So now is the time for you to get your food together. Hopefully you're in the kitchen or you're pulling it up, in front of you, because we are in for an incredible treat. I am so honored and so excited to introduce today our keynote speaker for this Saturday. Let me tell y'all, I've had the distinct honor and pleasure of hearing and experiencing the brilliance of this amazing human being so much throughout movement. I have learned so much from her every time she speaks, and what she contributes in terms of her organizing, what she contributes in terms of just her ability to really frame and message things that make you feel it at the deepness of your core is mind-blowing to me. So I am going to give you the introduction to our keynote speaker today, Raquel Willis. Raquel Willis is a Black transgender activist, writer, and media strategist dedicated to elevating the dignity of marginalized people, particularly Black transgender people. She was recently announced as the new Director of Communications for the Ms. Foundation. Let's give it up for that. She is the former executive editor of Out Magazine and a former national organizer for the Transgender Law Center, also known as TLC. In 2018, she founded Black Trans Circles, a project of TLC focused on developing the leadership of Black trans women in the South and Midwest by creating healing spaces to work through oppression-based trauma and incubating community organizing efforts to address anti-trans murders and violence. During her time at Out, she published the Trans Obituaries Project to highlight the epidemic of violence against trans women of color, and developed a community-sourced 13-point framework to end the pandemic. This project won a GLAAD Media Award. I told you, you can't get no better than this. This sister has been putting it down in community for quite some time, and we are all in for a treat to be in her presence, to listen to her wisdom, and to learn, to connect. So I will now turn it over to the amazing Raquel Willis. Thank you so much, and welcome to Justice Now 2020. You need to unmute yourself, my dear. Gotcha.
There we go. Already a new move. I was just saying thank you so much, Monica, for that warm introduction. It's always powerful to be in your presence and to hear your voice as one of the leaders that we continuously look forward to hearing words of wisdom from as well. So hi, everyone. I am so glad to be joining you today at the Justice Now 2020 conference. I have to give a big thank you to all of you for welcoming me into the space, all my fam out there, my Atlanta fam, my Augusta fam, my Athens fam, my Georgia fam, and of course, folks all across the South. I also have to give a big thank you to the entire Spark RJ team, of course, Dr. Crystal Redmond. It's just powerful to be here today. So I know that everyone has really had powerful doses of wisdom over the course of the last day or so. And so I'm holding so much as well, because we're definitely just a day removed, obviously, from the Trans Day of Remembrance 2020, and recognizing the upwards of 36 trans people and gender nonconforming people who have been taken senselessly in the United States. And of course, there's upwards of 350 globally that have been taken. So I wanted us to just have a moment of silence for those souls, and just hold all of their power. And in holding that power, I just want folks to also remember some of our trailblazers we lost in trans community this year. Of course, Lorena Borjas earlier this year, powerful, towering figure for Latinx community in Queens, New York. And also holding our own Southern Titan, Monica Roberts, powerful, powerful Houston-based organizer, advocate, and of course, a writer and blogger extraordinaire, someone I look up to so much. So as I was reflecting on today's theme, as goes the Black, queer, and trans South, so goes the nation, I had to grapple with a lot of things. So I'm from Augusta, Georgia, and growing up, this idea of a Black, queer, and trans South just seemed impossible. It seemed like something out of a fairy tale. I didn't even actually have all of the language to even imagine that. Obviously now I know more. I know that South has always been there. But I think so much about how I really spent a lot of my life trying to run away from my Southernness. When I was growing up, I spent most of my adolescence dreaming of living elsewhere. In fact, I remember being in 8th grade and laying in my bed, just waiting. I was like hoping, I was like, can graduation from high school just be tomorrow so that I can finally go somewhere else and really be surrounded and affirmed in a different way. And I hold all of that complexity because I think spending so much of that time trying to run away from my Southernness actually has allowed me now, as I'm older and quite wiser, I hope, to actually hold on to it even stronger, because I realized that I really was under the hex of this kind of white supremacist patriarchal version of the South. I was getting a lens of it that I think most people often get when they encounter the Southern narrative, that we're solely defined by the struggles that we have been through, defined by the struggles that we continue to go through. When we talk about the civil rights work of the past, oftentimes.
Welcome back. Please forgive our small little technical issue, but we are getting everything queued back up, and we will get all the videos on in just a moment, but welcome back. We hope that you have your lunch ready and that you're currently eating. If not, you will be eating soon for our keynote speaker who will be back on in just a moment. So hang tight with us and we will get everything moving forward in just a second. Thank you all so much for your patience. We really appreciate it. Oh, the power of the virtual world. And sometimes that virtual world. But we're here and that's the good thing. Let us know how you feeling in the chat. Are y'all back? You okay? What are you eating on? Let us know. I'd like to know. I have some delicious pasta coming from this amazing restaurant here. I live in Atlanta, ATL, shawty. So it's in this really, really cute little part of town called Hateville. And it's a delicious Italian restaurant, but they have really great pasta. So I'm gonna get that. Oh, bananas and chocolate. That sounds delish too. What else are folks eating on today? Let us know in the chat. Let us know how you're feeling. So we will know. In just a few moments, we will have having a gorgeous salad here in Columbia, South Carolina. Yay, South Carolina in the building. I'm a North Carolina girl, born and raised. So Carolinas will always have my heart. Great. It's a beautiful day here in Atlanta, Georgia, too. Really pretty outside. I got to step outside for a while. Oh, we're having tostadas. Oh, y'all are fancy. Okay. Come on, tostadas. I love it. Sauteed chicken thighs, rice, greens, beans, bacon. I felt like that was beans, greens, potatoes, tomatoes going on for a second. All right. Y'all better eat this good food out here today. And of course, bacon. Oh, there's a quiche going. Oh, yeah, you fancy. People got quiches and stuff. Okay, y'all are doing it big. Well, continue to engage with each other and let us know what you got going on. But our amazing keynote speaker is back and ready to go. So I'm going to turn it back over to Raquel. Thank you so much for bearing with us. And the floor is all yours, beautiful. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Monica. I heard that beans, greens, potatoes, man. I heard that too in my head. Yeah, welcome back, everyone. And thank you for rolling with us. And also just give some love if you can. I don't know if there's I don't know, thank you or something you can throw into the chat just to the tech team and to Monica for being such a powerful, gracious, and smooth host, even with all of this. So I'll go back just a little bit. So I was talking a little bit about reflecting on today's theme and this idea of as goes the Black, queer, and trans South, so goes the nation, felt foreign to me. Or it did, at least if it was landing on my ears as a younger person, just because that was not the part of the South that I had access to. I was saying I grew up in Augusta, Georgia, and I really felt very isolated. I've told this story many a times, but I remember laying in my bed in 8th grade, literally counting down the next like 4 years of high school where I would still be in Augusta, and just dreaming of going elsewhere, because that's where I was always told that the meccas of queerness and transness were. Even in Augusta, you know, the news and the truth of Atlanta, for instance, hadn't hit me. And so I remember thinking about that and how that really ties into how the South is so defined by really this white liberal imagination of the South, right? The South as the scapegoat for all of the inequalities and inequities in the United States writ large. And how the South is used as a scapegoat in a way to make particularly, in general, white folks who live elsewhere feel more progressive or feel more as if they have tackled racism and white supremacy. But the truth is, and I know this largely from having lived other places and now living in Brooklyn, New York, that that isn't true. That the South is just that, a scapegoat oftentimes, and that what I actually appreciate more now than ever is the authenticity that comes from the Southern experience, that we are very clear that these systems of oppression continue to plague us in ways that other places that consider themselves progressive pearls don't always confront it. And I think obviously as we're in this election season, post-election haze, that continues to be true yet again, is that all across this country, people are showing they, you know what, and their capitulation to white supremacy and all of these systems. So with that, I'm gonna start sharing my screen. Oh, let's see, we're gonna share this. And today I really wanted to talk about this concept that came to my ears when I was a part of a transformational justice, healing justice, and self-care fellowship with Auburn Seminary a few years ago. And there was this conversation between Andrea Jenkins, it was Valerie Spencer, Aria Saeed, Toni Michelle Williams, Mickey B, you know, the girls. So it was a cohort of Black trans women, and we were all just sharing about our experiences. And one of the things that was brought up, but particularly between a conversation with Valerie Spencer and Aria Saeed, was who would we be if we could be us from the start? And so thinking about in this Black trans context, who would we be if we had had the freedom to express ourselves fully, the freedom to name what we knew to be true about our identities and our experiences? And I started trying to incorporate that questioning into my life and wonder, what are the ways that we can create paths to make it easier for the next generations coming up to be more of themselves from the start and not have to wait until later, or wait until they find the perfect location or the perfect community or the perfect mixture of all of these different elements. What if we started crafting that world now? Bear with me, I'm trying to, there we go. All right, and so that also made me think of some of the teachings of Audre Lorde. If I didn't define myself for myself, I would be crunched into other people's fantasies for me and eaten alive. Now, when I think about the South and I think about all of the rich Blackness, queerness, and transness in our history, I think about the ways that we don't often get all of those stories of resistance. I think about the ways that, again, we are so defined by the struggles that we have been through, and not so much the wins that have paved the way for wins to happen across the country and of course across the world. I think about my home in Augusta, Georgia. I think about the fields that my ancestors obviously plowed and looked after under a white racist imagination. I think about that rich lineage of my mother And all of those stories that we get some of it, but we don't get all of it. And when I think of the work of someone like Monica Roberts, which really inspires me, I think about the importance of us figuring out how to craft our own narratives from our own lens, how we don't rely on a broken media system to tell us who we are, but how we actually insert ourselves wherever and whenever possible. And so in that work, there's work that I think we can all do around telling our stories to ourselves, because if you can't tell it to yourself, you can't really tell it to other folks, and you can't really strengthen and combat harmful narratives. So I want you to marinate on a few of these questions. Where and who do you come from? Thinking about region, thinking about family, thinking about movements. What do you know at your core? What are the truths, the essences of your being that make you who you are? These can often be things that you have shared with others. Even more often, they can be things that you haven't shared yet. What are you committed to? This could be tied to your purpose. What are you committed to? What do you want to do? What do you want to draft? What do you want to create? What brings you strength? What are the things that you can hold on to in your story, in your history? And what do you need to heal from? Thinking about that trauma, sometimes it creeps up on you and you're like, oh, I feel it. I'm feeling something. What do you need to heal from? And as I think about all of the different folks on this call right now, in this session, all of the different type of work that you do, the attorneys, the organizers, of course, the healing justice folks, the policy wonks, maybe budding politicians. What do you need to heal from so that you can best be of service to the communities that you're a part of? So when I think about the South, going back to this theme, I think about the ways that Southerners are very clear about what we need to heal from in this country in ways that folks in other regions may not be as attuned to. We have a clarity around the white supremacy that we know that the KKK is alive and well, honey. We know that the Proud Boys, the white supremacists, all of these folks that seem like they came out of nowhere have always been there, never gone away. And that's something that people, believe it or not, truly do are truly just starting to grapple with elsewhere. Thinking about the patriarchy, particularly in RJ work. I think for a lot of folks outside of the South, that feels so far away. These abortion bans, these restrictions on access to adequate, affordable, and effective healthcare. And these restrictions on trans people in our bodies, whether in sports or in public accommodations and in terms of access. But we have clarity that these issues still exist. We didn't need the deplorable ACB confirmed to the Supreme Court to know that we couldn't rest on past progressive wins and think that they were just going to stay. And so a history of resilience in reimagining my personal relationship with the South. That meant tying into history. Now, granted, I will say it's been a more sprawling experience because obviously there is the movement, the social justice movement genealogy. And then of course there's the bio genealogy. And so it's been an interesting mixed web for me. But I think about that question of who I could have been if I had been me from the start. And part of it lies in knowing that rich history, knowing about the Tracy McDaniels and the Dee Dee Chamblees and the Lady Chablis and the Cheryl Courtney Evans and the Pat Husseins and so many more, these powerful Black, queer, and trans folks who paved the way for the work that we are doing now. Being reminded that the work that is happening now is not happening in a vacuum. That all of these people, named and unnamed, laid planks into this platform that we're walking on right now, or moving on right now. I didn't know the story of, and this is now one that lives very close in my heart, but the story of Frances Thompson, a Black trans woman who was in the Memphis riots. I think about how she was recorded, and really the only records we have are records of her interaction with the criminal and justice system. You know, and that is often true for a lot of our historical Black, queer, and trans figures, is they were just being themselves and documented as quote unquote criminals. And so if you don't know that story, I really suggest you can Google her now. A few years ago, that wasn't true, but the story is starting to be told more and more. But she testified and is considered possibly the first trans person to testify in a congressional testimony. And she chronicled her experience of experiencing sexual assault at the hands of a white male mob during the Memphis riots, along with her roommate, who is reported as a cis woman. So it really shows the connection between the trans and cis experience long before we were even really using these words and had these concepts as tools. But I think about that story, how it took me until I was in my mid-20s to know, oh, there were Black, queer, and trans people, and documented, in the 1800s. That's wild. And I should clarify, documented in a historical context. So that leads me to how we can start creating spaces for other stories. Hopefully once you get a grapple on your own story, then you'll have the power to make that space. So where are you exposed to new perspectives? This can be hard in a time of increased disinformation. We see it all day, every day on Facebook. Facts don't matter. If anything, the more hateful the facts are, it seems like, particularly on that platform, the farther they go. But where are you exposed to new perspectives? If you are a cis person, are you really following and listening to and in conversation with trans folks? If you're not Black, are you really following, listening, and in conversation with Black folks? Are you committed to that? Same goes for straight people. Are you listening to queer and trans folks? Where are you exposed to new perspectives? Where are you being challenged in constructive ways? And then where does your story connect with others? This is that empathy piece. How are you understanding your story as just one thread connected to another person's thread in a larger tapestry? And then, what is your commitment to elevating others? Chances are, if you're in this space, you might have a little leverage. You might have a little platform, whether it's social media, whether it's in community. How are you elevating others? How are you not just listening to those stories, absorbing them, and holding them, but how are you letting those stories fuel you into action? And so I think about this RJ context, this reproductive justice context, and how we still have a lot of work to do, don't we? We have a lot of work to do in connecting the threads between the various experiences that are out there. So just as we are understanding that we have this runoff election coming up in Georgia in particular, there are right-wingers who are pushing misinformation about abortion access, about candidates for this runoff. And I think about that particular part of this conservative fight to restrict the access of folks in terms of reproductive justice in the same context, on that same spectrum of violence, where we see a Black trans woman like Felicia Harris in my hometown of Augusta, Georgia, being murdered for who she is. And even that, of course, is connected to this conservative fight against trans athletes, particularly trans women, but trans athletes in general, how that affects trans and gender nonconforming youth, how all of that discrimination is tied to what is happening to our sisters and folks caught up in ICE who are having their bodies taken for granted by the system, by the state. And then I think about recently, obviously, was Intersexual Awareness Day, and a lot of folks were talking about intersex issues in a different way because of some of the activist wins this year, particularly at the hospital in Chicago, the Lurie Hospital. So I think about those wins and how we have to continue that fight, and also see the fight for intersex justice as connected to all of these fights as well. So we've got to do better work on looking at these different threads in this larger tapestry I was just speaking about. How can we show up better? How can we continue to innovate on this platform of reproductive justice crafted by so powerfully by Black women? How can we continue to support the expansion of that concept and make sure that we are fighting and protecting fighting for and protecting the rights of people of all genders and of all experiences? So a lot of my work, of course, has been in communications and media and journalism. And I see all of that work as cultural organizing, expanding this master narrative, this larger narrative. And so as you lean into the power of your own story, lean into the power of other people's stories, it's a nonlinear process. And so there are ways that you will be changed in this journey, particularly a social justice journey. And we have to constantly recalibrate around these stories that we have accrued. So which pieces of your story will you protect for yourself? I think about the visibility moment, particularly for transgender people, but of course we're in a different type of visibility moment, I think, as well, writ large in terms of social justice, particularly in the wake of the murder of George Floyd and Breonna Taylor and Tony McDade and so many others earlier this year. And in that visibility moment, we continue to see obviously the exploitation of our stories, of our work, of our narratives. We continue to see powerful media brokers see us purely as trends, purely as notches on their bottom line. And so in that, there's a lot of allure in giving all of your story, even the pieces that you may not be completely at home about yet, or being too vulnerable in that process of consumption. So what are those pieces of your story that you will protect for yourself? Unapologetically. You have the right to decide what parts of your story are yours and what parts of your story are others, or opened up to others. In that, which pieces are you willing to share? There's got to be a distinction there. Got to have those boundaries. And why have you felt like your story doesn't matter? If you are on the margins, chances are you have felt this way at one time or another. You may have felt this way today. I know I've felt this way probably a couple times this week. But let's get to the root of why you may feel like your story doesn't matter. Why do you constantly have those feelings return to you? Much of it, I'm sure a lot of us in this session will agree, can be explained by these systems of oppression. The white supremacy that tells us that only the white lens matters. Or this idea that only a male lens matters, or only a masculine lens matters. Only an able-bodied lens matters. Only a light-skinned lens matters. Only a thin or quote unquote fit lens matters. And there's probably, of course, a collection of personal experiences that stack up to also make you feel like your story doesn't matter. And I share this all as someone with anxiety, honey. And what makes your story powerful, though? What about that? A lot of this work is reminding ourselves of our power. Oftentimes when we don't even feel it. Because if you aren't right in your own power and you're going out to organize folks, trying to get them to see their own power, and you can't even recognize your own, honey, what's going on? We got to do that work too. The same work you expect other folks to do, you got to do too. And lastly, who told you your story doesn't matter? And I would add here as well, who told you that your story was powerful? So all of these threads of stories, your personal story, the story of the movements, our histories and her stories and their stories, the stories you haven't heard yet. They all come together to form this larger tapestry, and we've got to know how they all relate to each other. So whether you see yourself as a cultural organizer, that's how I see myself, or not, stories are a tool for organizing. And there's a lot that we can learn from communicators, from journalists, from the poets even, from our artists and creative folks. A lot of times that cultural work sets the terrain. I think about how we talk about how elections set the terrain for the organizing we can do, and that cultural work does too. And we all can have a part in that because we all have stories. So what are the ways that you can use your story to connect with other people's stories, to craft a vision of liberation for the generations coming up, so that they can start a little bit closer to that finish line than maybe you did? And it's easy to feel a little bit bitterness. I think it's easy and it's normal. I was interviewed and the interviewer asked me why I had once been quoted as saying, I was just born in the wrong time. I wish I was born, you know, in the future, where there's this assumption that we've had all of these wins. And I feel that way sometimes. It's hard. It's hard getting up every day. I know folks in the session have also had their difficulties as well, of just feeling like it's just such a grind. You know, this year has been so difficult for so many of us. So many of us aren't even here anymore. We've got this pandemic going on. Numbers are spiking and increasing every day right now. We've had the continuing mass unrest. The police brutality continues. The brutality of the state continues. But being invested in the social justice work calls on us to hold some type of hope and faith in our people, because our people have so much untapped power and potential. So we can lessen the effects of all of these systems of oppression so that they can start a little bit closer to that finish line. We'll be in service to these other generations that are also coming up. So with that, I want to leave you with this quote, and then I'm also gonna do something a little different. I'm gonna do a poem. I'm not a poet, but just something I wrote as I was reflecting on the South one day. So first, a little Alice Walker. The process of storytelling is itself a healing process, partly because you have someone there who is taking the time to tell you a story that has great meaning to them. They want to give it to you in a form that becomes inseparable from your whole self. That's what stories do. Stories differ from advice in that once you get them, they become a fabric of your whole soul. That is why they heal you. Okay. So I'm gonna end with this poem. Y'all be sweet, because I'm not really a poet, but this is something that I wrote that I'm kind of playing with for my book. So, okay. I come from Georgia red clay that clings to the bottom of souls, worn and weary and waiting for salvation. Sticky, stifling air lingering above the Savannah River's noxious waters, stolen like land from the Creek, the Chickasaw, and the Cherokee. Maybe they too a part of me. Big old grand plantation houses erected on top of maimed yet sturdy Black bodies. Melanin and blood dotting those endless green rows of that rich white. It was teachers who fed promises of tomorrow. To young ones in one-room schoolhouses. Their chlorophyll-stained denim from tumbling. They couldn't escape their destinies. Those kids with knobby knees and scars from climbing trees, who fell asleep in pews each Sunday. Not even the pontificates in small wooden boxes could keep them from dreaming. Rehabilitated by baptisms in the form of slobbery femme kisses, from matriarchs with powdered faces and fragrance that lingered when they left rooms. Whose peacocked hats always conquered the wide brims that crowned brown men in big dark suits. We look good, don't we? I'm just trying to catch up to you. Big old teeth, sometimes pearly, sometimes variegated, half hugs, head nods, head pats, daps, jittery knees. Butterscotch and mint from grandma, so calming in the face of sobering Negro spirituals. And colonized Catholic hymns lifted airy voice singing. That singing filled our bellies when the repast couldn't come soon enough. Little prayers for survival when the rumbling came. Saccharine iced tea for blistering days. Fish fried chicken and chicken fried catfish. Butter, the secret and the nectar. Spongy sweet potato pies and savory collard greens that coated the cornbread like gold on heaping plates. Cookouts with sustenance for whole seasons. Soul and jazz and funk blurred as they bust through speakers. Obnoxious announcers on the radio when the sun was out, and sleek ones huffing through the quiet storm. Stay, sweet love, remember the time? Auntie could warble, chirp, and holla. Aunts and y'all sprinkled the air like Lowry seasoning, but mature truths brought starvation. Once warm embraces from big old cocoa buttered arms, suffocated and strangled by conventional expectations. It'll be okay, babies, and just pray about it were the bandages. This sin, unlike all others, wasn't met with I reckons, and everything happens for a reason. Pappy didn't make it, and I gained a hard freedom. I had to run, grasping for the other parts of me, faced with others who stole mama's rouge and daddy's bow ties, though they weren't supposed to. We found ourselves away from home, underground in secret clubs and hidden parties with glitter strewn across liquor-soaked floors. Returning seemed impossible, not prodigal. Many will never return. I trudged along with it all in my hands, not one sack or satchel dropped. Liberatory tongues bound to mine, love letters emailed in the ether. Sister and brother needed the hieroglyphs, but like the earth, mother was always shouldering sturdy feet. I could call a ceasefire and go with what I know, but daddy's child doesn't give up easily. I come from places and people with names not yet uncovered. They're waiting. I'm drafting the map. Won't you come with me? All right. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Raquel. I know that y'all can feel that. I know you may have said that you're not a poet, but that was one of the most beautiful pieces of poetry that I have ever heard. Put your love in the chat. Put your hands in the air. Send all of this love to Raquel Willis for dropping such beautiful knowledge, wisdom, giving us reminders of going in and understanding and owning and standing in the power of our own stories and using that power to move and do this work. That was such a beautiful reminder today. And it's so necessary as we continue to do the work that we are all called to do in all the ways that we are called to do it. All right, good people. We are now going to move forward in our day. I so hope you see all this love that you're getting, Raquel, because they are pouring it in. I hope that you all are also pouring it in over on the social media side of things using the hashtag JusticeNow2020. Please make sure you continue to flood it in over there as well. We are about to head into our second panel for day 2 of Justice Now 2020. And this panel, y'all, I mean, all the panels are fire, but let me tell you something about this panel right here. As goes the Black, queer, and trans South, so goes the nation. Come on now. Y'all know it's about to be going on and popping over there. We got Tony Michelle, Mary Huggs. We got Kay, Holiday. I mean, and it's moderated by Marla Stewart. I can only imagine. I'm ready. I hope y'all are ready. We're ready. So we are just a little bit behind schedule, but we are going to update all of that in your WOVA app. So please make sure that you start to make your way over to that space for this amazing and exciting panel. After that panel, I'll see you all back here around 3 o'clock to tell you about what's happening for the rest of the day. So come on back and get with me so I can tell you about what's going on next. Hope you enjoyed your lunch. Hope you used that card in your liberation kit to get that lunch. And I hope that you're enjoying all the rest of the things in your liberation kit, the Black Sanctuary space, all the things that Justice Now 2020 has made possible for you. Get into it, keep living into it, and let's keep making this day great. So all love, good people. See you at the panel and enjoy yourself. See you back here at 3. Bye, everybody.